to yet another episode of Beyond the Present podcast. My name is Daniel Mulligan, and today we are talking about the beloved concept of rationality. That's right. That's the one thing that is missing in the modern world, despite all the progress we have made in terms of technology, education, and almost any other area of life. We are still lacking behind in terms of rationality. So guys, let's start off first by making a simple, form of confession. You see, most of us, we like to think of ourselves as rational beings. That's what we tell ourselves all the time. And here's the trap that we are all in. Did you know that the more rational someone thinks he or she is, especially if he or she tends to declare that publicly, the less rational they are likely to be? And unfortunately, when it comes to making the most important decisions of our lives, we are making those decisions emotionally, labeling them as rational decisions. And as you probably know, most irrational decisions do not bring about good results. And in the end, what ends up happening, when like, why isn't my life working? What's wrong with my life? What's happening here? Why can't I get this thing work? Well, the answer is very simple. It is because you are trying to make decisions in a very irrational manner while you expect good results, and that's simply not going to happen. Because in most cases, your very best decisions are your most rational decisions that are, made by looking at the entire situation and then trying to understand what type of behavior will truly advance your interest. So, guys, let's first define rationality and then understand why it's unfortunately a little bit scarce these days. So, rationality and being rational doesn't really mean to be non-emotional. Doesn't mean to be a robot like, oh, hello, I am just a robot. I have no emotions. Of course not. Rationality is a human quality, and since humans by nature are emotional, the very notion of being rational itself, it involves being emotional, but in the right way. So the first myth about rationality is that, well, if you're rational, then you're super logical and you're not emotional. False. Rational people are not robots. They're people just like you, and they experience all the emotions you experience, but they tend to have more control over those emotions. So please do not confuse rationality with being unemotional or cold or these things. Oftentimes, many of those so-called cold people are actually very emotional. And in many cases, they're actually very hurt from the inside. That is why they're afraid to show those emotions. That's why we call them cold. It's not because they are super rational, because ironically, most rational people tend to express their emotions a lot more freely, because they know that they can express their emotions without, the fear of being judged by others, because they know they are, in control of those emotions, right? That's number one. Number two, do not confuse rationality with being, a micromanager who has to analyze all the details before deciding what to do next. It's like, so what do you want to have for lunch today? Do you want chicken or do you want some, shrimp? And this guy goes into a rampage. Oh my God, let me just do all the calculation here. I'm going to do all the math in here. No, dude, that is not being rational. That's the exact opposite of rationality, because now you're a micromanager and you're stuck in unimportant details. So once you understand that rationality is none of those typical things we associate with rationality in a false way, that is being unemotional or being so much into details, what rationality really is all about is doing things that will truly advance your interest and make your life better, depending on what your values are, both in the short and especially in the long term. So when you engage in activities that make your life better in the long run, you are doing things that are rational. And when you do things that are fun in the moment, but tend to actually ruin your future, you're engaging in activities that are, for example, irrational. So think of all the things you've done recently that felt good or right at that moment. Whether it was, to eat certain stuff you knew you should not have eaten because of your diet, and then a couple of days later, he's like, oh shit, I'm still fat. Or think about, the things you wanted to somehow say to one of your colleagues, like, listen, what, Jake, you're such a person. I'm so mad at you. The hell with you. So you just expressed your anger and you were a little bit impolite maybe. And at that time, it felt like, the right thing to do. You had to just, express yourself like that. But later you said like, oh my gosh, I feel so sorry about what I just said. Well, you just did something irrational. You did something that was good in the present moment, but it did not lead to any results that you wanted in the long run. So today, I want to encourage you guys to look at the concept of rationality very differently. And please do know that in most cases, unfortunately, unless you're trained and you're, engaged in a process of personal development, we tend to make a lot of, irrational decisions, and we think we're doing them in a very rational way, but that's not true. So from now on, whenever you want to make an important decision, whether it is to, react to a comment, whether it is to start a new project, whether it is to, whatever you think you should be doing right now, ask yourself, will this action truly lead to my benefit and, it'll somehow advance my interest in the long run, or I will get, what we basically call short-term gain for long-term pain. So rationality is the ultimate aim of personal development. It's the ultimate aim of education. It's the ultimate aim of, developing your character and personality. And that is why today I want you guys to somehow take this concept a bit more seriously and ask yourself, am I really making my decisions with the longevity of those, decisions and their consequences in mind? Do I make my decisions to make me feel good now at the cost of making me feel bad tomorrow? Or do I actually care about advancing my interest? Because unfortunately, when you're not concerned about the future consequences of your action, what ends up happening is you will not feel very happy. Irrational decisions are the cause of the majority of mental health issues around the world. They are the majority of, causes behind relationship issues, health problems, financial problems, and even political problems, as we've seen among, global leaders. So today I'm encouraging you guys to think a little bit long-term when it comes to making, your decisions. Maybe it's not going to be that difficult to skip that, snack for tonight. If you really think that, I want to have some fun tonight by having that snack, but what about tomorrow? I want to have to wake up and live with the consequences. Maybe you will drink a little bit less at the party, knowing that, there is going to be a tomorrow, and I don't want to wake up with a hangover. Maybe you will care a lot about your, spending habits. You're like, it's a pandemic. I could be dead tomorrow, so I might as well spend like the money's going out of style. Well, fortunately, life, basically expenses is going up all over the world, and you could just spend like, there's not going to be any tomorrow, but what if there would be a tomorrow? And you wake up and you realize that you're broke. You could just like, the hell with all of these things. I'm just going to be like this cool actor on TV. I'm going to just be like a cool guy. I'm going to go to everybody and just curse and say, I don't need you guys. Well, what if in the future you realize that you actually made a mistake? And then you realize, oh boy, I made a lot of bad decisions in my relationships. You see, rationality is about giving yourself the opportunity to make decisions regarding your future without any concern about the short term and major concern about the impact, the consequences, and the long-term, basically, decisions. So from now on, I want to highly recommend you guys to take this concept very seriously. And anytime you feel like you're being rational, double check the matter. Am I making this decision because it feels good now? Or am I making this decision because I know it will make my life better? Once you even ask this question from yourself, your entire manner of thinking changes and you start looking at the world differently. And this allows you to make far better decisions. So guys, that was the short program for today. Just trying to encourage you guys to take this concept very seriously and to simply give yourself a bit of time, especially for important decisions, maybe a couple of days. Let yourself cool off a little bit and then ask yourself, is this the right decision? In most cases, once you give yourself some room to think, then you will actually rethink your decision, and that allows you to live much more happily and harmoniously with those around you. All right, guys, that's all the time we had for today. It was a pleasure to share my ideas with you guys. And of course, if you have any comments, you can contact me directly on the net, websites, and all social media platforms to hopefully be in touch with you guys. This was Beyond the Present podcast, and my name is Daniel Mulligan. Have a good one.
Hey!